Ladies and gentlemen, let's make sure the company name isn't showing on the thing. This is White Lightning 777. As you know, good news occurred. Rittenhouse, Kyle Rittenhouse, obviously one of the most obvious cases of self-defense in world history, of course, was fully acquitted of all charges that were bogus, never should have been brought in the first place, and but for leftoid pressure, were brought. There's a couple of lessons to be learned from this. First of all, defunding the police. Well, if you defund the police, you get what you pay for. Police cars cost money. Police academies cost money. Canines cost money. Uniforms cost money. Handcuffs cost money. Batons cost money. Yeah. He was, of course, he goes to, he's has a, family in Kenosha, invited by a family friend to protect a used car dealership. And, let's bring the second lesson. An AR or an AK is not an ally. Being alone, is in no way ameliorated or mitigated sufficiently just by having a rifle. Rittenhouse went with a group of others to protect property. He became distracted, person asked for medical assistance, so on, probably intentionally luring him out, became separated, and that's when all hell broke loose. In these circumstances, even if it's just you and your girlfriend who's 85 pounds soaking wet, okay, an ally is important. Do not be alone in a crisis. Having the AR helps. Having allies helps too. 3 or 4 against 10 is a much fairer fight than 1 against a mob. That's the way it is. The other lesson, of course, is the media lies. Now, white-on-white violence, intra-racial violence, is not a manifestation of white supremacism. And the one time, the count 3, it was called unknown male, where a person kicked Rittenhouse, and Rittenhouse fired a warning shot, either that or he missed, and that person happened to be black. The other assailants were white, and they got hit. So this does not fit or comport with a white supremacist mentality. An individual who, for example, was in conflict with other whites would be even angrier if attacked by someone of another race and probably shoot him even more times. Rittenhouse did show some restraint. Essentially, these people attacked him point blank range. He wasn't even really aiming the AR, just shooting him. I mean, they were making physical contact with him, knocking him down. And, this is what happens when you're alone. Nobody has 360-degree vision, and they can swing around behind you. They have an advantage. You don't have another set of eyes if you can stand shoulder blade to shoulder blade with somebody, or barricade yourself into a corner. Especially there, your chances are better. Other point, but for police inaction, Rittenhouse, these incidents would have happened. The police were literally standing around in a line in the middle of the street, just waiting for people to come up. Had these individuals been proactive, had they perhaps even used their own firearms or their own non-lethals to disperse this lynch mob, these domestic terrorists, they were there before Rittenhouse got there. They could have controlled that crowd, but for their inaction and unwillingness to fight, this would not have occurred. They created a power vacuum to which Rittenhouse and others stepped in. And he was not the only one with a firearm, but, the other, he was just attacked. Basically, these people tried to lynch him. Of course, the other problem with him is your physical appearance matters. Yes, he was 17, but even now, he looks young. He could pass for 13 or 14. He looks like a kid, and he looked like a kid then. You have what looks like a 12 to 14-year-old kid with an AR. Okay, and you're Antifa. That's tempting. I want to strip that gun. Why not? Go for it. Of course, they probably didn't quite realize he was old. The other, and that's what occurs. If you have a weapon, that weapon itself can be a motive to induce an attack. A gun has an inherent value to a terrorist, and they will try, for tactical reasons that are obvious, to strip you of that weapon, whereas if you were simply an unarmed hobo drunk in the street, they may have nothing to steal and may leave you alone. But probably not. So, we know the media lies. And, the others have. And again, this is why age matters. This idea that kids are the same as adults, that kids can make decisions, of course, other lesson. Transgender, I can decide whether to have an abortion or not, or I can decide whether to drink or not, or I can be emancipated and leave. No. Youngsters have immature mental faculties. They have poor judgment, and they have impulse control issues. You could see even on the stand. Now, granted, it's understandable in court to break down. Certainly, he's not the first or the last person who loses composure on the stand. Okay, but even when he's found innocent, you can see this individual is young. This individual is immature and is a civilian, has never really been through a program of discipline. This is not somebody that, has played a lot of football so far as I can know. This is not somebody that's been to a boot camp. This is not somebody who's been to a police academy or even been to, what the heck, one of those ropes courses or leadership courses. This is a civilian, undisciplined. That was almost his undoing, although, to his credit, he did manage to retain the weapon, and he only dealt with attackers at very close ranges. He wasn't lining up on people who were threatening him, but standing 100 or 200 feet away, although an AR, perfectly capable of doing so. Unless you're, at nighttime, you need night sight so you can line up a little bit better. But, you can get any damn piece of equipment for an AR. You could probably get put freaking motorcycle handlebars on the damn thing if you want. You can get anything for those. In the trial. Well, that was a foregone conclusion. Of course, prosecutorial misconduct will cost you a case. The other thing, jurors aren't stupid. They see a prosecutor lying, introducing evidence that shouldn't have been introduced. The judge probably should have just thrown the case out with prejudice. Although, it would have come back on him, in the long run. it's better to get the jury to put their imprimatur on it to grant legitimacy to him. Of course, in the future, hopefully Rittenhouse will. The other thing is, you get a good lawyer, a good civil lawyer, sue the living crap out of these people. There is no evidence that he harbored any white supremacist sentiments. If there were photos of Rittenhouse at a white power concert or in Klan robes or even holding a copy of the Turner Diaries, does anybody in the world think that would not have been all over the internet within 2 days? It ain't there. It's like Trump and Russia collusion. There's no there there. The only thing they can do is lie. I mean, it is ridiculous. Now, other thing with racism, yes, racism, supremacism can, as side effect, a dysfunctional side effect, lead to an increase in intra-racial violence. We see that with black supremacism in these neighborhoods and stuff. People have that Black Panther mentality, or they have the Aryan Nation mentality. I mean, in those groups of people, especially male-on-male conflict increases a lot, because those who worship themselves don't police themselves. They just don't. Rittenhouse even attempted to turn himself into the police at the time, and the cops just waved him on. Here's somebody, huh? Oh, he has an AR-15. Well, just go. I'll have fun. Other thing is, if the public negatively reinforces positive behavior, there will be less positive behavior. Same's true. Police are like anybody else. They respond to psychological pressure. The training kind of inculcates them a little bit against it, but it's not perfect. There will be more. And if the leftoids want to continue, the woke-tards want to continue to antagonize patriots, be my guest. Let's conclude. Let's start to conclude this way. There are 85 million gun owners in the country. They have about 350 million guns. Most of these people are right-wing. They're not necessarily white, but there are plenty of black, Hispanic, Asian people who are of that cultural sentiment of the right wing and of that belief system that have these guns. And by the way, no one knows how many ammunition there is, but it is estimated that I've heard all kinds of numbers, between 500 billion to 2 or 3 trillion with a T rounds of ammunition for these said 350 million guns. That's enough ammunition, not just enough to kill everybody on the face of the earth now, but that's enough ammunition to kill every human being that has ever lived since Australopithecus. The woke-tards need to let this sink in. Biden's like, well, you need F-15s and nukes over 30. No, you don't. Taliban had militia, knives and old AKs, and they gave modern armies hell. The left, look, you idiot, you commie bastards, you can't win this fight. Look at it. Look at Afghanistan. 20 years, we're out. A very small militia group, lightly armed, at Taliban. In the end, just got sick of it. North Vietnamese, NVA. Vastly under-equipped army compared to the United States. Militias have an inherent advantage going against armies, precisely because they're unorganized, precisely because there is no real central command and control structure. They're everywhere and nowhere. I mean, if you can think of it this way. If you're fighting with, say, a tiger tiger has a head, has a body, and you're shooting at it, it's trying to attack you, you can hit that target. You know where the center region is, heart and head. Well, situation 2, you're being attacked by swarms of murder hornets or killer bees, whatever, and you have the same gun. Well, what are you going to do? Nothing. They're everywhere and nowhere. Far, far, far more difficult to elude a swarm of killer bees or murder hornets than it is to elude a mountain lion or a tiger. Okay? That's why militias have an advantage. Lefties, real simple. You can't win a civil war. You start one, well, in the absence of interference, of course, patriots wouldn't easily. Most likely, and if American society fell apart, Russia and China would come in goose-stepping up and down the roads. Of course, they would also get hell. They'd also get kicked out in their ass too, but that'd be a nasty complication, to say the least. Yeah. The government's not, you think the government's going to nuke its own soil? Get people? Nah. What's the long-term solution to this problem? Like I've said before, probably the best thing to do is for, woke Tardistan. They're not Americans. They're not part of America. They're another country. They're another society, another culture. For lack of a better term, let's call them woke Tardistan, and we'll call us Americans to separate using the Czechoslovakia model, divide peacefully, go our separate ways, shake hands, done with it. Now, the leftoids, of course, they will implement their policies. They will be a one-party state. We will, on the right, probably sort of be the same way. And when they implement their disastrous policies, famine, disease, despair, decrepitude will break out. And the only thing we have to do is to have a border to keep, too many refugees from swarming over to our side. Or if they do swarm over to us, essentially re-educating them and assimilating them to our way of life will be of paramount importance. Anyway, this is White Lightning 777 signing out.